Welcome to Ask Dr. Karen. Our first question comes from Moxie Melissa. Moxie Melissa has coined the term the spouse spectrum. The spouse spectrum, which is the range of emotions that the spouse of the chronically ill person experiences, along with the range of behaviors the spouse displays, was created by Moxie Melissa. Moxie Melissa's blog, which helps to inform and empower Cushing's patients along with their friends, families, and loved ones, can be found at cushingsmoxie.blogspot.com. Please check it out as it has some great resources. Moxie Melissa would like for me to address how spouses deal with chronic illness. She writes, "Some are super supportive but overwhelmed. Some are adversaries and become angered by the loss. Others fall in between. How does a spouse at each of these stages feel? How does it impact the cushy? And what can each participant do to help the other?" Great question, Moxie Melissa. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross addresses 5 stages of loss. Loss can be experienced by the chronically ill person because that person has lost his or her life as he once knew it and is going through a very difficult transition during this loss period. Spouses, caretakers, or loved ones of the chronically ill person may also go through these 5 stages of loss. I would like to go through these 5 stages and address how spouses are impacted. The first stage is denial and isolation. As a spouse of a loved one dealing with chronic illness, it can be very difficult to accept. It's hard because the roles of each person in the marital relationship has changed. Sometimes, for instance, the wife may have been the primary caretaker of the children. And now that the chronic illness has taken a toll or has decreased independence on the part of the wife, the husband now has increased responsibility. So whereas before, maybe the husband primarily went to work and had a lot of help from the wife, it might be the case that now the wife has decreased responsibilities in the home, and now the husband has to take on more in caring for the children, making sure that household things are managed appropriately, and also providing emotional support to the children and the wife. This can be a very difficult time, and denial may exist as a defense mechanism in order to cope with such a great and tragic loss. This can be very traumatic, and so what this presents as can be avoidance, lack of empathy, lack of support, or lack of understanding. The husband in this case may appear to be very withdrawn, distant, and isolated. Maybe during times of crisis, the husband is not able to deal, and so he basically isolates himself in order to avoid dealing with just how traumatic the experience is. This can be very hard for both parties, and for this reason, it is very difficult and can have a very, very impactful toll on the relationship. Let's move on to anger. Anger can present as rage and resentment. A person who is angry might ask, "Why me? Why is this happening to me right now? Why isn't this happening to anyone else?" Well, just as the chronically ill person may ask those questions, the spouse of the chronically ill person might ask those questions as well. This is a time when a lot of people also do not give much support to the spouse. The identified sick person is the person with the chronic illness. A lot of people neglect the spouse. They don't ask the spouse, how are you doing in all of this? They only ask the person who is chronically ill. This can elicit feelings of anger as well. Therefore, you might encounter a spouse who, though he wants to show loving feelings towards you, may appear very angry, maybe sometimes even hostile. It is important to understand that there may be various reasons for this presented anger, and it may be helpful to take some time to reflect on what is this really all about, and not what is just on the surface. I have had many experiences where people have reported to me that their spouses presented as very angry. However, when they processed this and analyzed it further, they realized that it was really fear manifesting and presenting as anger. Sometimes our spouses are very afraid. They're afraid because of the toll that the chronic illness is taking on the relationship, the marriage, the household, the family, the children, and other aspects of their lives. They're also very afraid of losing their loved one. Because of that, sometimes spouses can come across as extremely angry, another defense mechanism for essentially dealing with the loved one that they care so much about. I would like to move on to the third stage, which is bargaining. Sometimes you will encounter a spouse who bargains and says, maybe if we did this, then my wife or my husband would not be so ill. Perhaps if we didn't have that fight all those years ago, maybe the first 2 years of our marriage, they were so rocky, they caused the tumor to come on, or whatever the chronic illness is. This stage of bargaining on the part of the spouse can create a lot of mixed emotions while he or she is dealing with all of these raw and very heavy emotions. I'd like to also address the fourth stage, which is depression. While chronically ill patients may go through depression, which is a great sense of loss, spouses of the chronically ill may also experience extreme periods of depression. Remember, just as we are likely to get depressed and experience this stage, so are our spouses. Now, how does this answer Moxie Melissa's question? Defense mechanisms are mechanisms used in order to deal with life. They're the things that you see on the surface. However, there are always underlying issues. The last stage is acceptance. Now, in the marital relationship, the spouses have accepted what is. Empathy and support and validation usually diffuse anger, hostility, and resentment. Take it case by case. What is really going on? That is the question you want to ask yourself. Take some time to be validating. Think about if this is truly a loving relationship, and then take it from there. Eventually, the both of you will come to a point of acceptance. Thank you.